Welcome to Wolf's Watch. I'm Wolf. This is a quick follow-up on a previous episode that I mentioned. Variability will ruin your life. So I want to follow up on a comment, explain what does that mean? and that is also known as the statistician's curse, or the curse of statistics, because it ties into statistical analysis. And as my mind-bending mentor, instructor from way back in the day, Dr. Jeffrey Luftig, so aptly put it, statistics, it's as exciting as sucking on dry sand. It just, not a super exciting topic, is it? And you likely had statistics somewhere, some type of mathematical analysis in your educational journey. For me, when Dr. Luftig said, we're going to teach you about variation and analysis of variation, and it is going to ruin your life, I want to pass that gift along to you. That's a tongue-in-cheek way of putting it. It also has a fair amount of truth packed into it as well. And here's why. Let's take a key metric like deliveries. How many days from the time you get a sale booked to the time you deliver the product or service. Let me try that again. From the day you get an order booked to the time that you deliver, the day that you deliver the product or service, how much time elapses between that? How many days? So an owner of a company, that manufacturing company, he and his brother built it up, and they were expanding amazingly. They'd gone from a family-owned business that was small when they took it over. Their father had founded it. They picked up the business when their father retired, and had been working for years to continue to build the business. It's a very large operation by a lot of measures. They're over $40 million a year in sales. They had roughly 125 employees, I believe. So it was over 100 employees. Going great guns. They were beginning to get major acknowledgement within their industry. At an annual trade show, the president of the company was invited to speak to be keynote speaker at the trade show. So this was one of those moments where, in front of his peers in their industries, being acknowledged for the great work they were doing with their business, so that they were on the rise, to serving customers in a way that the customers were talking about. And this is his opportunity to be acknowledged and speak in front of a lot of his major peers that he respected, and other leaders in his industry that he expected. And he's up at the lectern, and he delivers his speech. And as part of his speech, he says something that just turned the industry on its ear. He looked out at the audience and he said, "We deliver in 30 days. And that might be a long time in your industry. In their industry, that was a third of what it took. The median time to delivery for their industry was 90 days plus. So imagine that. Imagine the business advantage, the strategic advantage in the marketplace of being able to stand up in front of the whole industry and say, we can do it 60% faster than everybody else and do it in excellence. Quite a big statement, big stir, and just the newsletters, getting headlines in trade journals on that when it was reported within their industry. So that was really getting a lot of attention. And then variability ruined his life. You know why? They had a median, and I'm saying median for a specific reason. So the median, the metric, right? We talked about metrics recently in a recent episode as well. So they were measuring the amount of time that it takes to deliver, right? So the median, say this is your median. So that means 50% of deliveries are slower, 50% of deliveries are slower this way, or faster, right? So that's the midpoint. And median is a very specific term. Average, that's fine. We're in the realm of, welcome to the world of statistics. Median is very specific in terms of it is the midpoint. So you've got half. In this case, since we're measuring time to delivery, half are slower, half are faster than that 30 day point. So he had made the statement, their median, they deliver in 30 days. Well, their median was 30 days. And how did variability ruin his life? In this case, the variability, which is a measure of how far away from the median you are on either side, gave him a range of sometimes they would deliver as quick as 12 days, but on the slower side, sometimes they would deliver as slow as 75 days. Even had cases that were longer than 90. It was a few outliers. I know this because I actually ran the analysis on their data to look at this and go, look, you've got a problem here. And he was dead set on, no. 30 is the median. That's a good number. Well, think about that. If you're a customer to this business, you've got a 50-50 chance of getting what you ordered in 30 days. You've got an 80% chance of getting what you ordered in 60 days. Are you a satisfied customer? Is he really delivering in 30 days when he got up in front of the industry? So here's where the problems really started. Orders poured in. They got a lot of press coverage within their industry. And as you likely know, no matter how large the industry, whether it's a really small niche or a huge generic like the auto industry or a consumer product, industries get small, fast. People know each other. Word gets around. So in this case, like wildfire, the message spread. You know what? This company's 60% faster than everybody else. Time to market is crucial. So that's a massive advantage for their customers because their customers can respond a lot faster. And that triggers a lot of other things. We won't get into supply chain, how it affects the supply chain. But as you can imagine, being able to have a supplier that can respond 60% faster than your competitor's supplier for the same service, right? It helps you, right? So in this case, orders start pouring in. You know, it's like, hey, time for Pizza Friday. Order the pizza, shut everything down, get the crew together. We're going to have pizza and celebrate because business is booming. And they did, rightfully so. Here's the problem. You get 30 to 60 days out. What's starting to happen? Because you have this huge variation. You know, he said 30 days, but it's actually 12 to 75. Now, 75 is still better than the industry average. It is, what is it not? It is not the 30 days promised. So have you ever experienced that? You know, if you've experienced ordering something, being promised a delivery date, and then it ended up being double that, or not even double that. Say they didn't hit the date, but it was not, you know, it wasn't like, oh, it was due today, you got it tomorrow. It was late and it caused you problems. Mention it in the comments. You know, how late was it? Put a 1 in the comments. And you know, let me know. I've experienced that, and I've had people that delivered faster as well. That's great. Here's the problem though. Half of the new orders were not making the 30 day mark. And in fact, when we looked at the distribution of the distribution in this case, it was the midpoint. There were other problems. I'm not going to get into the weeds of the statistical analysis on it. This is about variation. So this is what I mean by variation will ruin your life. If you don't understand how consistent a metric is, it's hard enough, as we discussed previously, to select the right metric. Now, to understand what that metric is really telling you, to have it properly analyzed, and to make sure the person that's reporting that number to you understands, what that number means. Do you want the person responsible for deliveries to tell you, yeah, we're hitting 30 days, and not tell you that 30 days means, well, it could be 12, it could be 75? Or it's 30, but 60% of our deliveries are actually anywhere from 20 to 45, 50. You want to know that. You need to know that, because what's going to happen with your customers? What would you say if you placed 6 orders with a supplier, right? A supplier you're doing business with over a period of time, and they're going to deliver. And you know what? First order, right on the mark, 30 days. Second order, it's 35 days. Third order, it's 25 days. Fourth order, it's 50 days. Fifth order, it's 30 days. Sixth order, it's 65 days. See, that's the experience you would have if you ordered from this person that got up in front of the entire industry at their huge annual trade show and said, we deliver in 30 days. What are your thoughts on that? Would you be a happy customer? Would that wreak havoc on your business? See, that kind of variability would wreck your business. So it comes back to, you need to understand variation, right? If it's 30 days and it's range plus or minus 2 days, can you live with that? It comes 2 days early, it comes 2 days late. Do you ask those kind of questions when you're working with suppliers? You just get somebody that just checked in and need to acknowledge, hey, Sherlyn, it's great to see you. Thanks for joining the conversation. Hope all is well in Texas. Good to see you, Sherelle. Thanks for joining. So coming back to that variation, do you ask about that when working with suppliers? Do you ask about that when working with customers? Not to get it out, but go, hey, look, what's the earliest that you can accept this? If we can get it done earlier, what's the earliest? When do you really need to have it? So you understand what's happening with them, because you don't want to, especially with physical product. If you're selling a product, you don't want to send pallets of product to their receiving dock when they don't need it. So you don't want to come too early. You definitely don't want to miss a critical date that starts messing up their operations. So it's asking those kind of questions. How would you feel if, when dealing with a new supplier, they asked you those kinds of questions? Would you like that? Then why aren't you asking those questions of your customers, and especially your new customers? And why aren't you asking those questions of your suppliers who aren't leading with those types of questions? That could be a big flag. It's about mindset, right? From a leadership standpoint, that could be a big warning sign that they are promoting a statistic that is in and of itself accurate, right? When this gentleman told his industry, we deliver in 30 days, that was their median delivery time. He just didn't include that information, and he completely ignored the variability around that. We had a couple of heated conversations over that, because I was attempting to influence him, right? So a leadership failure on my part, because I was attempting to influence him with to come to the understanding of the impact it would have, that half of the deliveries were going to be late, and it could go as long as 45 days. It was not uncommon for them to deliver 45 days instead of 30 days. Now, 60 days, 75 days, that was more rare. The whole thing is, from a statistical standpoint, it was something that a customer should expect. That level of variability, and especially since they were guaranteeing it. Oh, I missed that point. When he, right? So you want to keep adding more and more, how this guy just dug himself into such a deep problem with his industry. He stood up in front of the industry. We deliver in 30 days, guaranteed. He couldn't back it up. The reason he couldn't back it up is he had no understanding of the variability around that number. He knew it was the median. In an analysis of what the median really, what that really meant, we found and laid out graphically so we could see it visually, and talk about it so you could hear the message. And when we're looking at that, started with some of his staff, and we're getting the feeling that this could be a problem, right? So even when presented with the information, the perspective of variability, he decided that didn't matter. Over a period of 6 months, orders came in, had this big spike. 6 months, it was a very ugly scene with a lot of unhappy customers, especially new customers. They didn't have that relationship. Customers that had been with them a long time understood what the delivery schedule, what the delivery experience was, and for many reasons they had a strong relationship and they were willing to work with that. New customers, not so much. Imagine if your first delivery was one of the 75 days late. Are you going to continue to do business with them? So what happened was, 6 months out, they're having all these problems. 9 months out, sales are dropping like a rock. A year later, when an annual trade show comes back up, they're doing less business than they were the previous year. And they have a lot of people in the industry that now literally won't talk to them because they burned them on the 30-day guarantee. And the reason that happened, and it was very predictable. This is the power of understanding variability in the numbers that you're tracking, because it affects the experience you're having with your team. It affects your team experience in the environment that you're creating in the workplace. It affects your customer experience in working with you. And what kind of experience do you want to create? So it was very predictable, because had they looked at the analysis, had they really taken the time, and it didn't take a lot of time, we're talking a couple hours, to understand what was going on with the statistic that they looked at, because a number, one number standing alone by itself is meaningless. What's the context? If they had taken the time to understand the context, they would have been very predictable that making a statement that 30 days guaranteed wasn't going to work, because 50% of their deliveries were over 30 days. And because the variation was so wide, the variability is so big, and there's actually statistical measures of variation, like you hear, standard deviation and whatnot. It tells you, how wide is the variation. If you've got a number of, say, 10, say it's, well, in this case, let's just stick with what we're talking about. So it's 30 days. So if the standard deviation is 10 days, that's 30%. So when the variation is large as a percentage of the number you're tracking, you've got a problem. So it's very predictable that this would have happened, and it took them years to recover their reputation. And they never did make the 30-day guarantee. It was physically impossible, because they needed to do some serious changing in their manufacturing processes in order to be able to hit that number on a consistent basis, because of the nature of their business. They made to order. So it wasn't like they could build stock. A great case, one of my favorite case studies, was a kitchen cabinet maker. And he went to the largest contractors. What he did is he didn't do business with the public. He delivered to construction companies that were doing big residential builds. So they're doing 100, 200, 500 units at a time. And they would sell to them. And he went and said, look, I'll guarantee 24-hour delivery to your job site if you'll choose from, and he had a set number. So he was doing all custom work, and it was making it very, very hard to deliver on time. And in construction, a lot of times what happens in the build, the schedule slips. More and more and more. And then when you get to installing things like cabinets, the final finishing stuff in building a home, they're already off schedule. And because that's one of the last installs, there's incredible pressure on them. They're taking all the heat for all the other schedule slip that's happened in front of them. So being earlier in the schedule, you get less heat when the schedule slip, whether it's your fault or not. You're taking the pressure. So in his case, they're taking the pressure, and he's looking for how do we stop that, because it's affecting customer relation. It's an adversarial relationship, and he didn't like doing business that way. And second, how can he get a strategic advantage over his other competitors? So in his case, he managed the variability by saying, look, we're going to have a set number of designs. So say 12. I don't remember what the exact number was, but he went from infinite, totally custom from job site to job site, to we'll give you these configurations to pick, these 12 configurations to pick from, with minor options, so you can customize some. That will put us in a position where we can guarantee, you let us know when you're ready to install, we'll have it on the job site the next day. We guarantee 24-hour delivery, or we eat the cost. His business boomed. The top contractors, the top 3-5 contractors, construction companies that were building large residential projects, said, okay, we'll test that. And they delivered on it. And because he'd standardized, because he had reduced the variability, they were able to run inventory in a way that they could build the inventory and have it ready. So, okay, bang, we deliver, and still be profitable. There's a lot more that goes into that. But think about that. In the case of the build of the manufactured order, the 30-day guy, they had no ability to do that. Every order was custom. And in the case of the cabinet maker, they stopped doing the custom. Now for the person, the 30-day guy, that wasn't an option. He couldn't do that because of the nature of their business. In the cabinet maker, that was an innovation, that he was able to implement, which allowed him to, without massively, and over time, he made significant changes to how the business operated. But this was quick because all they had to do was change how they did final goods inventory, how they managed their inventory of stuff ready to ship. So two very different impacts of variation. One took control of what he could and made it easier to run existing operations, and that bought him the time to then work from customer back through his operations to continue to implement changes. The other one, they put them, the 30-day guy, he put himself in such a hard position that he could not respond. Plus, he didn't have the mindset of it either. He's like, no, this is fine. It doesn't matter because we've got the 30-day average. It's like, look, it's not a 30-day average. It's a 30-day, or it's a 30-day median. That's not what your customer is ordering from you from. They're ordering for 30 days guaranteed. And it ate their lunch. It really impacted their profitability and ended up creating a problem for a couple of years because now they had to completely alter their operations in order to meet the goal or drop the stated benefit, which was their strategic advantage. That's why they were getting so many new orders. And eventually they had to drop that, go through their operations and make it possible to run operations in a way that they could consistently deliver. And they never did make 30 days. They had to push that. They had to push the 30 days out farther so that to a point where they could manage deliverability on the guarantee. The median didn't change. What they did is they had less variability around their 30-day median, and then they moved their guarantee to where they knew they could deliver virtually everything in that amount of time. Still gave them a strategic advantage, created a very, very hard couple of years for themselves. So that's how variation can ruin your life. There's more to it. We'll talk on that, get a little bit, maybe a little bit more into the analysis side and the mindset. So what Dr. Luftig had counseled me on when he said this will ruin your life was the change in mindset, because I never looked at anything the same again after having been coached and mentored on watching variability, looking for gaps, understanding variation, knowing how to analyze it, ask the right questions to dig into information that's being presented. It forever changed my perspective. And it ruined my life from standpoint of at times it's very frustrating dealing with someone like the 30-day guy. And it also closes doors because you find, for example, you meet someone like the 30-day guy and says, we'll do this in 30 days guaranteed. It's like, man, that's fantastic. Start asking some questions based on understanding the context of the number and the guarantee they're presenting, and it ruins the day. It'll ruin your day because you realize that, wow, this was such a great offer. It would have been such a benefit to us. We can't do it because they clearly can't deliver. Which is also a good day because then you avoided a bad decision. So understanding the numbers, having your numbers, you got to know your numbers, right? It's a mantra in business. You got to know your numbers as a business owner and understand the context for those as well. So variability and variation will ruin your life, but it'll also save your bacon so that you don't become the 30-day guy. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Wolf's Watch. If you like what you're seeing and hearing, if you're on Facebook, please like our page. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're watching this on Periscope, Twitter, share it out. Give us some likes. We appreciate that. It helps us continue to reach more. And as always, comment back. What do you like? What do you want to hear more about? If you got questions, if you got comments, if this triggers something that was an experience that you had, share that so that we can share it out with the rest of the community. Even if you're watching this on replay, I'm always responding back to comments that people make because I really appreciate you being part of the conversation. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Wolf's Watch.